Irrational forgiveness. Now, why is forgiveness irrational? To be quite honest with you, is because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't harmonize with what we want to do on the inside. Honestly, as human beings, we don't really want to forgive. We want to get back. We want to get even. We want to have vengeance. We want to have control. We want to get back at the person who did us wrong. We don't want to say, that's okay, and I'll let you go. I release you. We don't want to do that. In fact, forgiveness is probably the most misunderstood doctrine in all of the Bible. Sometimes when we think about forgiveness and we really think we're being really big about this, we think forgiveness is just releasing somebody from responsibility. But truthfully, when it comes to God's forgiveness, God doesn't just release us from responsibility, but in fact, God works to restore us. He not only says that I will forgive you, but He says I'll take your place and I will work to restore your life. And so when Paul begins to talk to us in Colossians 3:13, he says, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against each other. When he says bear, literally he's saying it's heavy to carry people around and be willing to forgive them. Because the truth is, if you're not willing to forgive them, you'll let them go. They'll fall by the wayside. You'll end relationships over and over and over and over, and you'll find yourself alone if you're not willing to forgive. God says, I'm willing to forgive you all the way up to the point where it really costs me something and it hurts. God's willing to do that, and He calls us to do that very same thing. In fact, Colossians 3:13 goes on to say, forgive as the Lord forgave you. That means the standard for my forgiveness of other people is the way that God forgave me. And I want you to think for a minute. Let's go down memory lane. What has God forgiven you of? Think of that shameful moment. Maybe think of something that no one else knows about. Maybe something in secret. What has God forgiven you of? Think about a lifetime of mistakes. What has He forgiven you of? Think about how you messed something up really, really good. What has He forgiven you of? See, God calls us to be forgiving, and He calls us to forgive the way He has forgiven us. And we forgive till it hurts. Jesus taught us this truth, didn't He? Jesus goes through His life and He just over and over teaches how to care and to love and to forgive. In Luke's Gospel, Luke 23:34, we have record of the final days of Jesus' life. He's well within His 30-day window before He dies. In fact, He's on the cross. Now, prior to this statement that He makes in Luke 23, Jesus has gone through a trial where He's falsely accused. His friends all leave Him by Himself to go through this all alone. He has people His enemies are listened to and they're believed. He's found guilty. He's punched in the face in public in front of everybody. He's beaten. He has the beard pulled out of his face. He's beaten with a reed. He is stripped naked in front of everybody. Can you imagine the shame? And then on top of that, he's ultimately found guilty. He's strapped to a whipping post. He is beat. His back is bloody and beaten. And then he's carried to a place just outside the city, the most shameful place you could possibly die, and he's nailed to a cross, and he's left there. People come by, they're making fun of him, they're spitting on him, they're laughing. That's his death. I mean, he's dying, and they're laughing at him. And here's what Jesus says. He says, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. He says, God, forgive them. That is irrational. That does not make sense. For me, you hurt me in such a way, I don't want to forgive you. And you know what? If you were honest, you'd say the same thing. There are certain people probably in your past, or maybe in your recent history, or someone just even last week that did something to you that you don't want to forgive them of it. Maybe they hurt you as a kid. Maybe it was somebody who was supposed to love you, but they didn't love you. They hurt you instead. And you don't want to forgive them because you say, gosh, you don't know what they did. Can you look at Jesus and say, you know, you don't know what it's like to suffer like I've suffered, so I have the right not to forgive? Can't say that, because Jesus forgave at that very moment. He forgave. See, Christ knows something that He wants you to know. Life is way, way too short not to forgive. Because see, the truth is that when you come to grips with the reality, bitterness and unforgiveness, it ensnares you. It puts you in prison. It doesn't put the person that you're angry with in prison. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't affect them. You really have no control over it. It still doesn't help you in any way. All it does is stops you from living. And God gives us this key to life. Life is too short to hang on to anger and bitterness and resentment. Life's too short not to forgive. You have to forgive. Because when you forgive, that's when you really go free. When you forgive, that's when you really are living. See, the peace and joy that God wants to give doesn't enter until you and I are willing to look at another who has wronged us and say, it's okay. I forgive you. I forgive you. Even if it hurts, I forgive you. See, you can waste your life or you can live your life. And the choice is ours, but it's way, way too short not to forgive.